Hello and welcome to an episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game.
Yay!
Let's meet the panel.
Lily.
Cynthia.
Charlie.
And Josh. So, Cynthia, when you substitute teach, you have an analogy that you tell your students about cats and cat litter?
Oh, yes, because the students were stressing out so much about tests, and they get flustered and can't remember what they're supposed to. So one of my cats was in a litter box one day, a very petite cat, scratching, and she scratched so hard and wanted to bury that piece of excrementa so much that it went flying across the room. And so that was inspiration for some students and myself to create a dance called the litter box, in which you remove the stress in your head, put it in the litter box, and after some really nice dance moves, kick it into oblivion so that you're ready to access the information that you do need in your head. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
And Mimi's in heaven now, but I'm sure that she's
I'm sure
thinking of us.
She's very happy.
It's stuck with one of your students. That
I'm a student.
and
I'm a student, so.
very good analogy for any of you that are in a stressful situation at the moment.
I like cats.
We're going to be talking about pets today with our work. What is that, Laney?
This work is called My Dog Tulip by J.R. Ackerley.
Okay. Well,
Incidentally, Truman Capote said it was one of the best books written by anyone ever.
And so did Christopher Isherwood.
I love Christopher Isherwood.
Mhm.
See Cabaret if you haven't. That musical is amazing. And it's based on an Isherwood novel, so that's not a non sequitur.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with these individuals, but we'll see as the show progresses with regard to the strength of the novel. But what's our first question?
How do you view Ackerley's relationship with Tulip?
The question, if you want to say strong, it was Tulip's relationship with Ackerley. Because Ackerley spent a lot of time complaining about what Tulip was not as opposed to what Tulip was.
Right.
And much of the book has to do with her fertile life as opposed to their heartfelt bond.
But isn't that how people relate to people? People always ask people, why aren't you more this, that, or the other?
That's how they relate with one another, but
Right.
Like, why
it's
can't
not.
you? Like, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
I don't. That's not usually how people relate to their pets.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. This is another lens, but
Yeah.
with the dogs that I've had, mother has bred, but not to the point that I judged the dogs based off of how many puppies did they have. I judged them based off of their personality and their interaction.
Do you hold them to a certain standard?
Eh,
Like, don't poop on the rug, and then 5 minutes later there's...
No, well, they know they're not
Oh, yeah.
supposed to do that.
My dog does not.
Oh,
you don't
sorry.
want your
She's a bit of a
animals-
pain in the butt.
When they get older, they lose control. But
Yeah,
Mhm.
never intentional.
that leads to the whole chapter, solids and liquids, or liquids and solids.
Yeah.
It's liquids and solids, where he talks about the dog and her going to the bathroom. It was lovely.
It was like Ackerley was her human. The vet, when he brought her to the vet, and the vet says, "Oh, she's a good dog. She doesn't really want it to be known, but like you'd be the only one to feed her." And she knew that it was going to be like that kind of dog.
Mm-hmm.
The vet, she couldn't even check the dog with him in the room because the dog was much different with him around as opposed to her with because she had such an attachment to him.
I was going to say,
she
she's
reacted
attachment
differently.
issues.
Mm-hmm.
You separate me from a cookie, I become a monster.
Mm-hmm.
What is the next question?
What is the reason to stress on Tulip's breeding life?
I think you said something about that, Lily.
I was going to say that's the expectation. It's a parallel. Ackerley could be using human to animal to comment on human to human, and when humans are in relationships, isn't it natural for them to have unreasonable expectations of one another? Isn't that why so many divorces happen? Why can't you be this, that, or the other? Why are you home so late? Who are
Why
you?
do you drink all that beer in the fridge?
That's a good way to look at it, but it all comes down to what he's trying to get off of it. Is he trying to use the attachment to a dog to commentate on humanity? Or is he trying to convey a relationship that he's had with a pet that he's had? German Shepherd, or in Britain they were Alsatians, because the Germans were frowned upon in England during the First World War that continually tended to get more heated. But
That's why we had a Second World War.
Another pet memoir, if you're into this stuff. Mark Doty has One Dog Days, and he's a wonderful poet, but this is a work of nonfiction of his that's really
technically, this is an account of nonfiction. The only reason, the difference is Ackerley's dog was named Queenie, but
yeah, they make it Tulip.
It was Tulip because Ackerley was one of the few individuals during that time that was openly gay, and the having a dog named Queenie.
Queen was a play on. Yep.
He didn't want to attract so much of that negative attention that he decided just to call the dog.
Explains the popularity with Christopher Isherwood too, because he preferred boys. So did Truman Capote.
Yes, that is true.
The name Tulip, I found that interesting because when I think of tulip, I think of springtime, regeneration, rebirth, rabbits furiously fornicating, and
well, it's
and
the
quite
first
the
of May.
alliteration.
yeah.
Do you know that song?
No, we don't want to know right now.
Yeah, but it's
PG-13.
It's
PG-13.
Jonathan Colton, and it's a very, very funny song, but we can't do it here. Look it up.
My sister had a dog named Tulip. We had
Oh.
It was a beautiful dog.
Oh.
That's true. We talked about her hearing that as well. You have our next question?
Of course. Do you think Ackerley succeeds at telling this story, and how do you feel he concentrated on the right areas?
I don't think he succeeded. I don't think that he did a good enough job to capture the relationship that he had with his dog, Tulip. You could see that if you want spoiler-free, I would not watch the segment, but he talks about how she gradually gets older, and that so she had this issue regarding a certain part of her. We had to neuter her, or we had to spay her, and she lived this long. The end. I didn't feel anything. He could have done a much better job making us appreciate our dogs much more.
It's so clinical and so reduced to productivity. But if you look at it broader, let's critical approaches to lit this.
Shout out to Dark Horse.
Queer theory lens, you know?
Right.
The idea of heteronormativity. People are defined by will they be productive citizens, and to a point that means creating future generations of laborers. Means obviously without insemination or whatever, gays are not. Anyone here read Foucault? History of Sexuality, #1?
No.
Okay.
You have.
Yes. Foucault postulates that sexuality as a category evolves with the advent of the Industrial Revolution because there becomes a need for future generations of labor, for productive citizens. So any model of practice that would not result in children gets denigrated, you know. this is where you get the stigmatization of pedophiles, of people with paraphilias, of the homosexual. Foucault has a famous line that the Industrial Revolution is the time when the homosexual becomes a species. You label it, it becomes isolate because human, in the eyes of the social, means the reproductive. This is where you get the, a little while later into the 70s with Lee Edelman, even in the 90s with his book No Future. You get his theory of the antisocial lens in queer studies, which is queer studies as being focused on lifestyles that don't perpetuate the heteronormative form, like people that aren't interested in, I'm going to be reproductive, I'm going to work, I'm going to contribute, I'm going to spend my energies in this way. In much the same way, here we have Ackerley focusing on his dog's productivity in the way that society might have been focused on his as a gay man.
That is a fine argument looking into if somebody who's looking into queer theory wants to make the comparison, then they could very well approach this and they may see something very different. But Tulip is able to produce one litter. Not much really comes out of it, but it was, I think one of them had a seizure and died at a very young age, unfortunately, with puppies. But but as the story progresses, it really
It's a denouement after the puppies happen. In line with what you were speaking of, Lily, it was as though Ackerley never had a companion, a human companion that he loved so much, and so Tulip became his ideal friend that he had always longed for.
That is true. I wish we would have been able to know a little bit more as to why.
More background?
I wish there was more. I wish he was more.
Forthcoming.
Yeah, forthcoming. I wish he appreciated her a bit more than he conveyed.
Well, there is a thing of being relationally closeted. You know, people can shut themselves out from people because they can be out in some ways and very, very much in others.
I wrote a review about this book. I'll leave a link to the blog post at the bottom of this video. But was there any final thoughts and points? Or did I ask that?
You haven't asked, but
Now you have.
Now I have, yes.
Good work, though.
I don't think I have a closing remark of any kind.
I think if there's one thing I can say, Groucho Marx said that there was only one thing inside of a book that was man's best friend, and that was a dog. Specifically, he said that outside a dog, a book is a man's best friend. Inside a dog, it's too dark to read. But
A little too,
but he was just being
Groucho.
Groucho was a master of absurdism, which is a form of existentialism. But the connection that the human has to their dog, their loyal companion, is beyond any that they may ever be able to encounter. Maybe they're going to find that very special spouse, but
you will find that special someone. Just keep holding on.
a dog is a very, very intimate companion of yours. It's more than just a dog. It's more like a little child, a little boy, or a little girl. And we had our dog Tulip very much. That was what very that was one of the reasons that encouraged me to pick up the book. This was a disappointment, but Tulip sure was not. And had she been able to survive the month, we would have had her on the show.
She was a wonderful dog.
Very serverless.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, if you're interested in picking up the book, which I would not, but if some of his theories interest you, here's a copy from New York Review Books. It's New York Review book. There was a movie made.
It's animated.
An animated film in 2011. I remember that from when Ebert Presents at the Movies was on. Werner Herzog, the renowned director, he read off what Ebert had to say, because it was at this point in time that Roger Ebert had the procedure that left him unable to speak, eat, had those other things. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. Until then, keep reading.
Especially Foucault.